Torture is still going on. 12,000 disappearances since the end of the war, and they are continuing. Killings. Now, this is not good enough, is it? And for you to put into the public arena the idea of a conference which is simply going to give a blessing to a man who is suspected of grievous war crimes is surely itself a crime.
It's not sufficient to say that we are not doing anything there at all. We've done this work on torture, we've done in reconciliation, we've done a lot of work on moving forward with the human rights commissions on many fronts. We've done this work on judicial independence.
With what effect?
Now, everything which you do with the member state, the results are not forthcoming overnight. I do realize that out there's a lot of skepticism which will get somewhere or not. But I think in the given period of time which we have had, we've made very good progress, and of course we have to keep on seeing that this progress is made.
Where is any kind of justice being brought to the families of those who've disappeared these last 3 years, 12,000 people? Where is the justice to those people who lost families and loved ones in the massacres at the end of the war?
The two processes that have been started by us, which is a national plan on reconciliation, which is being done by us, as well as this inquiry into torture, will bring out the questions of truth, of accountability, and of disappearances. I firmly believe in the fact that unless you know the truth, and if you want healing, how can you have forgiveness?
Well, we know the truth. The truth is that the president of Sri Lanka stands accused of very, very serious infringements of human rights, which have cost many, many lives. And he is going to be allowed to shake the hand of 50 leaders coming through, and in many ways you've played a role in bringing that about.
The decision, as I said, of holding this Shogam belongs to the leaders.
But at no point
right
you
now,
said, I don't think this should happen, this isn't good for the Commonwealth. I've never heard any of that from you.
What is good for the Commonwealth is to engage in creating real progress and constructive progress in the areas of human rights and the rule of law, which is what I'm engaged in. This is the strength, actually, of human rights work from the Secretariat. If you look at other cases, for instance, what we did in constitutional reform in one country like Tonga, or constitutional reform in an African country in Swaziland, or indeed in Maldives, the gestation period of what we do takes a while.
The problem at this point is that the man in charge, the man who has to do all this, is the man accused of these crimes.
But we will work with the chair in terms of the values and in the charter that you are holding, looking forward to advancing these values in working with him.
One of the most important countries in the Commonwealth, Canada, is refusing to go. And they're refusing to go in part because you didn't tell them about the legal advice you'd had concerning the president's extra-constitutional, unconstitutional activity.
This advice was procured for a particular purpose for which it was used.
Why do you think Canada pulled out then?
Canada, from the public statements that Canada has made, it has said that it expected to see progress in human rights, which is not visible enough for the Prime Minister himself to go.
Well, where is that evidence? Could we not share it with you? Could you tell us?
The points I have made about torture, about reconciliation, about the work we have done.
When people are still being disappeared.
That is the national inquiry with which we are associated, which is going to be done with an advisory group.
By the man who did it.
No, the Human Rights Commission is doing it with us, with an advisory group from the Commonwealth, in order to ensure that this exercise is a serious one. A very important point, always to keep in mind, that progress does not happen in a vacuum. I have heard a lot, what is happening in Sri Lanka in this, that, or the other. Progress can only be secured if institutions like the Human Rights Commission are strengthened and given the muscle and the spine in order to do their work, which is why what we are doing moving forward is working with them. It's one of the big ambitions we have, is to raise the status of the Human Rights Commission from what's called International Recognition B to A, so that they are able to safeguard the interests, human rights interests, of their own people, and we are working with them.
Well, if you were able to persuade the President of Sri Lanka to adhere to the call from the United Nations for a full international investigation into what is happening, then perhaps you'd be using some muscle. But there's no evidence you're going to do that.
There are two channels here. One is that which is taking place in the United Nations in respect to the events of the conflict. The other one is the progress we are able to make in human rights and the rule of law on the ground, which becomes progressively visible.
But you can see how viewers are going to find this very difficult to understand. On the one hand, the Chief Justice is sacked, and on the other hand, you have further disappearances. In this very month, disappearances. In this very month, killings. In this very month, journalists who get disappeared. This isn't an improvement in human rights.
In the processes that we are now setting in motion, and what the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka is also able to do. For instance, they made a recent announcement that if within a 2-week period, something which they have said does not happen, then law can step in and they can take legal measures against it. In the end, it is always the Human Rights Commission which must be a guardian and a protector of the rights of the kind of rights which you are talking about. Well, in fact, we have, I know you've got the charter in your hand. In fact, we are very shortly going to put up on our website information which interestingly takes as a caption something which is in the charter and what we are doing in Sri Lanka, and put there what we are doing.
The grandeur of the meeting is going to drown any of the pictures, for example, that we've seen. Have you seen any of the films that we've put out about Sri Lanka?
Yes, I have, and I must say the images are disturbing.
Well, that's an understatement, isn't it? I mean, it's shocking evidence, that's the problem. And it does seem to me, as a final question, that for a year in which you've actually produced this charter, in which the issues of human rights, democracy, rule of law, good governance, then find you within months staging an event like a Commonwealth summit in the middle of Sri Lanka, which is in disrespect of every one of these issues, it doesn't look good, does it?
But in the time to come, I trust that the people will see that that is what we thought at that time. And looking at some of the initiatives that I have mentioned, and the fact that we are driving forward this agenda for the rule of law, democratic institutions, and human rights, that indeed very significant advances have been made in the interest of the citizens of Sri Lanka.
Secretary General, thank you very much for talking to us.